Tonight, crews cut into an overturned tanker on the west coast to free a driver trapped inside. The images are incredible. This Corner Brook highway was cut off today as crews rushed in to douse the toppled tanker and pull its driver from the vehicle.
I'm Colleen Connors in the heart of Grossmore National Park today, where crews are clearing out a landfill from the 70s.
For Parks Canada, our idea is to provide a pristine environment for Canadians to come and visit and look at the site.
I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you what they found.
Every day, workers are at risk, and employers are let off the hook.
Tonight's labor leaders say some businesses are rolling the dice, taking chances and dodging responsibility for serious workplace injuries.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan. A road in and out of Corner Brook was cut off today when a fuel tanker overturned on the highway. It was a tense scene this morning when a tanker truck toppled over after attempting to take the off-ramp heading east. Crews with the fire department, the RNC and the RCMP quickly blocked off the highway in both directions. You could smell the fuel leaking from the truck from half a kilometer away, and the truck was hosed down in an attempt to prevent a fire. A driver of the vehicle was pinned inside the cab for about an hour. He was ultimately freed after firefighters cut into the metal vehicle. He could be seen shaking hands with the rescuers. The man was brought to hospital while traffic was funneled through Riverside Drive and Massey Drive, so drivers could bypass the scene and still access the city. Search and rescue crews in Natwashish are on the lookout for a snowmobiler who hasn't returned from a hunting trip. Police say the 41-year-old man left a cabin near Mustassen Lake early Monday morning and hasn't been seen since. Weather conditions were poor at the time. Helicopters have been conducting an extensive search of the area. PAL Airlines has also stepped in to help. Meanwhile, teams on the ground in Natwashish and Shahajit are searching what police describe as a vast area. While Richard Wareham will spend at least another 8 days in jail after his case was set over again this afternoon. Wareham is accused of killing his 36-year-old relative, Kenny Wareham. The 57-year-old was charged with manslaughter after Kenny Wareham's body was found in his Little Burnt Bay home Sunday night. Richard Wareham appeared by video in Gander Provincial Court this afternoon. It's his third appearance since he was arrested. The matter was set over until Thursday. Labor leaders want action after major problems were uncovered in an internal government audit. Last night, we told you about a probe into serious workplace accidents in the province. As Rob Antle reports, there are calls for government to pick up the pace.
Officials here say they have accepted all of the recommendations in the audit and will set up a new investigations unit. But there's no firm date for all that work to be done. Labor leaders say that's not good enough.
While the vast majority of employers are absolutely providing a safe and healthy workplace for their employees, I can certainly imagine that there are some who are rolling the dice in hopes that the resources aren't there to undertake a proper investigation should an accident happen, and we don't want to see that happen. So we absolutely need clear timelines and a clear direction from the provincial government on when they're going to make the changes that are needed to keep workers safe.
And McCormick says that action needs to come from the top.
The blame for this issue should never be placed on at the feet of the people who work in the OH&S division.
This is the consequences when we have critical positions left short.
That audit found staffing issues and a lack of training were among the factors that slowed down investigations. In some cases, the 2-year deadline to lay charges passed, potentially letting employers off the hook. NAPE President Jerry Earle says frontline workers are doing their best.
Comes down to the need for appropriate human resources, and that falls back on management and departments of government to ensure that.
And there's also a political push to make this a priority.
After giving this report and everything that's come out in the media, I am reaching out to I'm going to be writing the minister and asking for immediate action on this dropped file from her department.
To know that at least 1/4 of the investigations reviewed were not completed within 2-year time frame. This is certainly concerning, and the Liberal government, is failing to update their policies and putting workers at risk.
The department that oversees occupational health and safety says it remains committed to providing the best service possible when investigating serious incidents. And that's why it requested the internal audit, accepted all the recommendations, and continues work to implement them. Officials say additional progress has since been made, including new standard operating procedures that are now being used by investigators. Rob Antle, CBC News, St. John's.
Returning to the West Coast now, crews in Grossmorn are busy removing truckloads of waste from an old landfill. It's part of a project to clean up contamination. The site, just north of Sally's Cove, sits just above the ocean's edge. Here now's Colleen Connors has more.
An excavator scoops mounds of mess into a dump truck. This is Martin's Point, in the heart of Grossmorn National Park, an old landfill site from the 70s.
Right, mostly plastic bottles, glass bottles. We found one car frame or car parts all over the place, and mostly like rubber boots, a lot of rubber boots, dolls, and some basic household waste.
This spot was used by people living in neighboring communities to get rid of their garbage. Now, 50 years later, it has to go. You can see bits of exposed waste along the bank, close to where fishermen check their lobster traps. While most of the stuff here are these old glass bottles and a lot of household waste, the issue, of course, is any contaminants in this landfill oozing out into the nearby ocean. And that's why the cleanup is happening. Early testing discovered lead and other metals are contaminating the soil, and erosion is allowing these materials to leach into the beach and ocean.
There was not much contamination, but we had a concern that the waste might be washed up to the ocean. In case of climate change, sea level rise, storm surge, and wave climate, there's a potential issue that waste gets into the ocean, and that was our main concern.
The remediation project has been in the works for about 5 years now. It started with crews investigating this coastline to find out exactly where the landfill was located. The project is part of the federal government's $4 billion Contaminated Sites Action Plan. Martin's Point is one of 23,000 listed contaminated sites.
Well, of course, for Parks Canada, our idea is to provide a pristine environment for Canadians to come and visit and look at the site. So it's really important for us. So that was the main concern about this site.
All the waste is getting shipped north to a proper landfill site in Hawke's Bay, the closest landfill that will take contaminated waste. Travelers can expect traffic slowdowns while the dump trucks enter and exit the landfill site for the next week or so. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Martin's Point.
Well, we're still in the same pattern with this area of low pressure sitting to the south, but the skies definitely were a little brighter at points today. I took the dogs for a walk this morning and I saw peaks of sun, so that's certainly lovely. The good news is over the next couple of days, we are going to see this pattern kind of let up from what we've been seeing, a little bit of a change in the wind direction as well. That area of high pressure still to the north, or that is what's keeping this area of low pressure in place, and we've got a beautiful afternoon happening up across parts of Labrador, particularly in the west. That onshore flow still keeping most of you along the coast cool, and some showers working their way across the island yet again today. But take a look at what's going on out there. Port-au-Port looks absolutely beautiful right now. Gander a little brighter as well, even some peaks of sun there, some showers working its way across Burgeo right now. And Wabush, again, an absolutely beautiful day. A lot less fog out there today as well. We can actually see the Narrows there outside the rooms cam. 8 degrees right now, visibility up to about 400 meters. There is some more rain on the way, though. I'll get into that coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. WestJet says it's suspending its service between St. John's and Toronto for this winter. In a statement, the company says passengers have been notified about the cancellations. Those with flights after October 27th are being offered alternative flights or refunds. The airline says it's adjusting its winter schedule and remains committed to Newfoundland travelers. Cancellation comes despite WestJet's CEO visiting St. John's last month, where he talked about the airline's commitment to expand its service across the province. Well, in other transportation news, the province's tourism industry took a hit today with the announcement that Marine Atlantic's brand new boat has mechanical issues and it's now going to impact the sailing schedule. Last week, the Crown Corporation announced the newly arrived Alasuinu ferry had mechanical issues and wouldn't be ready to sail as planned. Today, Marine Atlantic temporarily closed reservations on all sailings to and from the island between June 10th and July 5th. The news comes at the height of tourism travel season. Marine Atlantic will give an update tomorrow morning in St. John's on both the state of the Alasuinu and the other schedule impacts. 3 schools have been announced in and around St. John's in the past year, but a group of parents say there's been no real progress. Here now's Enrique Wilhelm has that story.
Our children just deserve better.
That's why these concerned parents met up with the progressive conservative education critic earlier today. Their frustrations lie with this piece of land announced in September as the future site of a school.
A new school right here in Kenmount Terrace.
As of now, no progress has been made on that promise, despite government's announcement to have shovels in the ground soon and an opening in 2026.
We see lots of announcements, but we do not see a plan. And that's what's frustrating to parents here.
Dating back as far as some residents recall, even maybe 2005, we have been promised a school in this area. And there has been a crumb laid here and there to indicate a school. We have a fancy sign that says there's a school coming, but we have no timeline.
Adding to parents' grievances, conditions at feeder schools for Prince of Wales Collegiate, which were reconfigured in late April.
There's overcrowding in the classrooms. The classrooms are getting broken up throughout the semester. There's impromptu classrooms going up in the cafeteria, children losing access to library resources because classrooms have to be constructed in those areas. Leary's Brook Junior High has no outdoor green space of its own, so we have children that have no areas to currently play in. They can't go outside at recess and lunch. When they do go outside, sometimes they're playing in busy streets and in areas of traffic and in the parking lot. They're kicking a ball around. It's unacceptable to our children.
Response from government, they say, it's been far from satisfactory.
Except for, we appreciate your concern, it is frustrating, we'll hopefully have some announcements in the days to come. But otherwise, we haven't received anything that's concrete.
And while there's been a request for proposals issued for the high school in Portugal Cove, Din says he wants to see a concrete timeline for Kenmount Terrace and Paradise. Despite a CBC News request, the provincial government has not commented yet. Enrique Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
There was another sign today that the hype over hydrogen could soon blossom into a real industry in this province. It came at the annual energy conference in St. John's. A record number of delegates have gathered to discuss the future of the oil and gas industry and the potential of green energy projects like wind to hydrogen. Here now's Terry Roberts has more.
Like many at the energy conference in St. John's, these two were in an upbeat mood today. The man on the right had big news to share.
We have completed our environmental assessment package, and that is now in for government review.
And that's not all. The company proposing to build a 300-megawatt wind farm and a hydrogen-to-ammonia plant at the port of Argentia revealed another important milestone. In March, Pattern Energy signed a letter of intent with a German energy company called Mabanaft.
Mabanaft is interested in being an equity partner in the project as well as sole off-taker for the project.
And that's worth a handshake for the man on the left.
We have to be ready, and so we're very bullish for the region because our communities have a stake in the project as well.
It's not yet a done deal, but Pattern's $1.5 billion Argentia Renewables project has now inched the closest in North America to firming up a customer for the hydrogen ammonia that will soon be powering heavy industry in Europe.
This is an opportunity that a lot of developers are chasing. But at this point, there have not been any firm and binding offtake deals for green ammonia of significance that have been announced. So this would be among the first, and I think, blazing the trail for potentially the creation of a new industry, certainly here in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Unlike other proposed wind hydrogen projects in the province, Pattern is building on private land owned by the Port of Argentia, a former naval base with a long history of industrial activity, and plans for a $100 million port upgrade to help accommodate all the increased activity that's expected.
For us, what it means is significant opportunity.
So while other projects, like the proposed World Energy GH2 project in western Newfoundland, have drawn the bulk of the critics and protests, Pattern believes this busy port, already home to a big oil construction project, is the ideal location.
The community is very engaged. They're keeping us honest and they're asking very good questions. But I think so far we've established a good track record of engagement with them.
Pattern is hoping to get the environmental green light by the end of this year, begin construction in late 2025 with a requirement for hundreds of workers, and start exporting green fuels to Germany in 3 or 4 years. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, as far as critters go, these are pretty tiny, but they sure can take a toll on your plants. Still to come, Carolyn Stokes will be rolling up her sleeves and getting some tips on how to grow from a pro.
I'm sure they're loving this rain too. There's a bit more on the way as we head through the next couple of days. There is a bit of glimmer of hope in the forecast, though. I'll talk about that coming up.
Hey Newfoundland, we're ready to break the ice. Berg! Coming to St. John's for 2 shows in June, it's the Debaters! The Debaters will be at the Holy Heart Theatre on June 17th and 18th with Facts and Funny. For details, visit cbc.ca/The Debaters.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. The absolute final deadline is midnight Friday, June 7th. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley, those temperatures are all over the place, it seems, depending on where you are in the province. Maybe you have a nice day. Maybe you have a St. John's Day.
That is very true. Yeah, we haven't really seen a whole lot in the way of movement in the temperatures over the last couple of days. Today, no different. Let's take a look at where we were sitting across the province today. Oh, I forgot. We're going to show you a picture first because the sky did brighten up a little bit this morning. And there's some blue sky. This is in Portugal Cove. Sue shared this photo with me on the email there. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Yeah, it's always nice after you haven't seen the sun in a little while, but it didn't really correlate with some warmer temperatures today, maybe a degree or two, about 10 degrees in St. John's, 13 in Terra Nova. Through Central, yeah, you saw temperatures a tad warmer. Around 15 degrees, 13 to 15 degrees. And the hot spot across the island was in Stephenville, which has been very typical lately, but not nearly as warm as it is up across Labrador. 23 degrees in Goose Bay today. Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Lab City sitting around 27 degrees. So another daytime high well into the upper 20s. We could reach the 30s even for parts of Lab West as we head through the next couple of days because this heat is going to stick around for you. And if we take a look at where we're sitting right now, we're really not seeing a whole lot of movement in those temperatures. Still an absolutely stunning evening temperature-wise across most of Labrador. But you head to the southeast portion, the coast, not very lovely, 7 degrees in Mary's Harbour today. So taking a look at what's going on, it's all about the pattern. It's all about where the winds are. And just want to kind of break this down for you. So today, a lot less fog. We saw a lot less fog, and the reason for that is a little bit of shift in the winds. Now, as we head into tomorrow, maybe in the afternoon, we might even see a little bit of a break and some clearing for a short period of time, but it's possible because we're going to get into more of a southerly flow, more southeasterly even, but that southerly flow will certainly help with that. It is going to bring the potential for the onshore showers potentially for the coast, the northeast coast, and it will continue for southeastern portions of Labrador. As we get into Friday, same thing, but Saturday, this area of low pressure will finally move to the north. It's going to change the winds to the north, but I do think in the afternoon we may actually see some clearing skies for the Avalon. But again, this is going to bring some cooler temperatures to parts of the province. And the good news is, especially for the Avalon anyway, this pattern looks like it's going to change. We should actually see some nicer weather as we head towards the end of the week and into next week. But that does mean that areas along the south coast are going to see that drizzle and fog set back in as we head into the beginning of next week. And like I said, it looks like it's going to continue as we head into next weekend. So there's still some time for that to change. But for now, that's what the pattern looks like. We've got some showers on the west coast, south coast of the island as well. Some heavier showers just offshore now for eastern Newfoundland and the Avalon. It does look like they should track north, but we could see some of those showers just skirt the northern portion of the Avalon as we head through the next couple of hours. The future tracker doing a great job showing that, and we'll likely see these periods of rain continue through the overnight and into tomorrow morning. Still very quiet up across Labrador, but overall temperatures between 6 to 10 degrees as our overnight lows across the island, and between 3 to 12 degrees across Labrador. Tomorrow, like I said, we may see a bit of change in the weather tomorrow afternoon, maybe late afternoon. Clearing across the Avalon as we see that wind shift. Showers still working their way through central. A lovely day up across Labrador again, except in that onshore flow for the southwest. So RDF still the story for you, and really will continue into Friday morning as we see that area of low pressure. We'll just zoom out a little bit to show you the temperatures for the afternoon. Tad warmer. a little bit, 11 to 12 degrees, 18 in Stephenville tomorrow. As you head towards Labrador, another absolutely gorgeous day, another 27 degrees in Lab City. We'll talk about the long-range forecast when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Let's return now to that annual conference in St. John's, where a record number of industry players are feeling energized about, well, the future of energy. Our Terry Roberts was on the floor today speaking with some long-time and first-time delegates who were all feeling the buzz.
Everything about energy is currently on the table here. So you got hydro, you got oil and gas, obviously, you got the new renewables. The large hydrogen projects are online, coming nice and slow down the pipe, but they will be built, they will be done. So this is what making Newfoundland the attraction right now in Canada and Eastern, and this is where global energy is happening right now. This is where it needs to be if you want to do business in the energy sector. Newfoundland it is.
So what do you see as the future for Newfoundland and Labrador?
Oh my God, it's going to be great. The next 10 years are going to transform this island like you'll never see before.
My name is Stacy Johnson, and I'm the corporate sales manager at the Sheraton Hotel and the Delta Hotel, St. John's. So what we do is we connect with customers and clients and all of these companies who are coming in to welcome them to our hotel to start partnerships. So that's what we want to do, is to welcome in all these new companies who are coming within the province to welcome them to our hotels when they need accommodations within St. John's.
Our commercial diving, underwater repair service business, providing ROV services. We work for most of the major oil companies. We've been in business here now for 41 years.
Does it give you optimism, confidence about the future outlook for Newfoundland and Labrador?
Well, absolutely. I think with the wind and the Beta Nord possibilities, I think the future looks very bright for us.
And what have you seen signs already that businesses, the outlook for your business in particular is good, bright?
Well, we're very busy, and there's a lot of good prospects in terms of developments coming up. So I feel positive and very excited about the future.
This is my second conference up until, I guess, the hydrogen energy sector was emerging and growing here. We didn't have much of an attendance here. We're not in oil and gas. But yeah, so it's been really great. Last year was my first year. I see a huge difference just in 2 years in terms of the activity around the hydrogen energy sector. And this is a record year, I think, for the conference itself. I think there's like 900 plus. And you can certainly feel that vibe here on the floor. So I'm a geologist, and I've spent my career in the mining industry. I mean, obviously I'm a native Newfoundlander, and I've seen the oil industry sector grow, and this is, with wind farm developments, is just another resource, one of many that we enjoy in Newfoundland, and it's another opportunity for us to see the value in that and to benefit from it as a province. So more work, more economy, more commerce to the province, so it's great.
We're a local consulting firm. We do a lot of work in municipalities, municipal planning, landscape architecture, asset management, that kind of stuff. A lot of municipal leadership is here, making sure that the municipalities have the resources and the capacity and are able to deal with the influx of people. So I think, getting communities prepared and managed for what's coming, and thinking about what's the added value that this can bring and to Newfoundland, and bringing a lot of people here, and the quality of life in this place and enhancing the quality of life in our communities would be fantastic. And I think this process, if it's done properly, and so from what I've seen, there's a lot of thought going into this, it could be game changing for this province, unquestionably.
He's not even 14 years old, but Vlad from Ukraine is going to be representing Newfoundland and Labrador at the National Arm Wrestling Championships. He's going to give me a few tips coming up on Here and Now. He's only been a Newfoundlander for 8 months, but Vlad Pinchuk is already proving himself. The 13-year-old from Ukraine won his category of the Provincial Arm Wrestling Championships. But getting to nationals to represent this province is expensive, and that's where the community stepped in. I stopped by to chat with him and his mom and get a little lesson. So first of all, Vlad, congratulations on winning the provincial championships.
Yeah, it was very exciting for me.
How did you get into arm wrestling? It's not a sport that a lot of kids naturally, you think soccer or hockey or things like that. What made you get interested in it?
I had a strong hands and see like my friends have some competition from arm wrestling.
Okay, and so you realized you were pretty good at it?
Yeah, because I have won some boys at school. And now I champion.
When you came over to Canada last year, were you able to keep arm wrestling? How did you keep up with it?
I went to the gym, and now I keep training.
And on a daily basis, how much do you train for this?
Like one practice, yeah. How much long?
Yeah, a few times per week.
Yeah.
And it's general in gym, and once or twice per week with coach. It's a special practice in arm wrestling.
So what was it like competing in Canada compared to competing in Ukraine?
It's like next level, because in Ukraine he was younger and it was on school level or maybe city level, but here he was qualified on provincial competition, and now he could represent Newfoundland on national championship. It's a great opportunity. We launched a fundraising company to raise money for our trip to Ottawa. We have a significant contribution from Ron Owens. We want to say big thank you, Ron, for this significant gift.
Yeah, so and you've been busy trying to raise money to cover, I guess, not just the ticket, but also, the hotels, meals.
Accommodations, yeah, of course.
What's the response been like?
So many people want to help us. It's incredible. People here are so kind, and we were surprised of a lot of supporting from them.
When you started this, did you expect that you would get this sort of level of support to be able to make this happen?
To be honest, no, of course, because it's it's up to us if our kid want to go to the competition. But another point of view that if this kid could win national championship for our province, for Newfoundland and Labrador, and we have no opportunity to help him to get there, so why not to ask people to help?
Okay, so I'm someone who hasn't done arm wrestling. Do you think you could give me a few tips?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so first of all, give me a few of the techniques here. How do I need to be set up here?
First of all, you gotta stay able here near your toe.
Okay, so I need to get in closer here so that elbow's nice and close to my body?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything special about the grip?
Gotta be so straight, and your fingers gotta be under your fingers if you want, but you can do this too. You gotta stay so straight, your arm.
Okay, so keep my wrist nice and straight. Yeah. Do you have a specific technique? What are some of the things that you do that work really well for you?
A lot of techniques of pulling. I do this technique like pulling on your back.
Oh, okay, so to pull it like right in, like in towards the person. As you can probably tell, I'm not known for my upper body strength, so promise you'll go easy on me?
Okay.
Let's give it a shot.
Okay. Ready, go.
Okay. Okay, you can go a little harder than that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you're going easy on me.
Okay.
Now let's try for real. Let's see how you do.
Okay.
Okay?
Ready?
Yep.
Go.
That seems about right. Congratulations and good luck in Ottawa.
Thank you.
Pests starting to crop up in your crops? Just ahead, Carolyn Stokes gets growing. Tonight, she's getting tips on how to safeguard from snails and other little slimy critters.
Gardening can be solitary work, but you're never truly alone when you're digging in the dirt. Insects can be your friend or your foe. Today on Get Growing, we'll show you how to tackle some of the most common pests in your garden.
Hi, my name is Todd Boland. I'm the horticulturist here at the Memorial University Botanical Garden.
All right, right, Todd, it's time to get growing, but something else is growing here as well. Tell
Indeed.
us who we have here.
Alrighty, so here we have probably the #1 pest most people recognize when they're in their gardens, and those are slugs and snails.
Right, do a lot of damage.
They can indeed. Compared to a lot of other insects that we have, which are sort of there, but you don't really notice them, these fellas are in your face, okay? And when they're into your plants, they are physically consuming it, and you go out the next day and you're seeing holes and you're seeing shredded leaves and all the rest of it. If you see that kind of damage, these are the little culprits that are doing it. When we think about snails, and I'll just take this little one out. These are actually were introduced in Newfoundland. They're not native.
Really?
Yeah, and I can remember as a child you didn't see them that often at all. Then suddenly they started appearing everywhere. These feed mostly on old detritus. So in the big scheme of things, they don't do the same level of damage as what slugs do. Okay. All right. So in the bottom of our little jar right here, you can see Mr. Sluggy. They are the ones that do most of the damage, and they're the ones that love to feed on your hosta leaves and your lettuce leaves and anything that's nice and soft and mushy.
So how do you tackle a slug problem in your garden?
Slugs are more active in the nighttime or when conditions are wet. So I always tell gardeners, don't water your garden in the evenings. Your ground is wet, your leaves are wet in the evening, that's only encouraging the slugs. There are slug baits that are on the market that you can purchase.
What's like an inexpensive home remedy?
Essentially what I do with slugs in particular is I'll go around in the evening, sometimes with a flashlight just after sun sets, and when I see the slugs, I just pick them off and I put them to a container filled with salt. I mean, it looks horrible. Yeah. I'm sure it's probably not the most pleasant death, but it's very, very effective.
All right, so we've talked about the slugs. What other kinds of pesky insects are there that can do damage to your garden?
Okay, well, as it turns out, I have just a plant here to show you some of the nasties. So right here we have a canna, which is a type of lily. A lot of people grow them in pots. Unfortunately, they are a magnet for one of the sucking insects, which is most problematic for us, which are aphids. So if you look closely here on the underside of the leaf here, this canna, you can see all these little brown spots, and each of those is a little aphid. It's just getting started now. If I don't treat this plant within a week or two, this will be just completely coated.
Really? And will they just eat the plant?
No, so they, as leaf suckers, generally what they're doing is they're probing into the leaves, into the veins, sucking out the sap, and generally what happens then is that the plant's leaves start to curl under to become more yellow, and then it's like the overall health of the plant starts to go downhill.
All right, so what do you do if you see this?
Okay, so insecticidal soaps are commercially available, but at the same time you can make it yourself, okay, and save yourself a lot of money.
Yeah.
So the recipe is 1.5 liters of water into our spray bottle, 1 tablespoon of dish detergent, not antibacterial, 1 tablespoon of any kind of vegetable oil.
That's canola oil?
This particular one happens to be canola oil, but any kind of vegetable oil, the cheaper the better. Okay. Olive oil is too precious to be using for this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm spraying the surface of the leaves first, but then it's very important to flip the leaves up so that I can get the underside of the leaves, because that's where the bugs are hanging out. One thing to keep in mind, insecticidal soaps can react with strong sun. I like to do it on a cloudy day, or I would do it in the evening after the sun's getting lower in the sky. Another thing I often do, like an hour or two after I've sprayed it, I'll rinse the plant off with clear water. But keep in mind that the insecticidal soap does not kill the eggs. Usually we'll spray with insecticidal soap about every 2 weeks.
All right, Todd, well, it's an easy thing to do. It's cheap, and I guess we're good to grow.
And you know, it's a kind of insecticidal soap you can use for anything that you have a problem with in your garden. So any kind of sucking insect, aphids in particular, this method will work.
Excellent, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The Bank of Canada delivered some highly anticipated relief for Canadians who've been waiting for interest rate cuts. The central bank reduced its benchmark overnight rate to 4.75%, a drop of 25 basis points. Governor Tiff Macklem says the high rates are doing their job.
Restrictive monetary policy is working to relieve price pressures. And with further and more sustained evidence underlying inflation is easing, monetary policy no longer needs to be as restrictive. In other words, it's appropriate to lower our policy interest rate.
Macklem points out that both headline inflation and core inflation are now within the bank's target range between 1% and 3%. Other factors like economic growth and job vacancies indicate inflation should continue to decline. An economist says today's cut is welcome news for people who've been carrying debt. He says the drop won't make a huge difference in the short term, but more cuts to the interest rate are likely coming.
I'm guessing a lot of Canadians are watching this report and saying, well, wait a second, prices are still extremely high. How can you say you've solved inflation? Well, a reminder that the Bank of Canada, its mandate is not price levels, but year-over-year changes. And while inflation is nowhere near, or prices are nowhere near where they were before COVID, in fact, they're about 16% higher than them, they're growing much more slowly. For the Bank of Canada, that's effectively mission accomplished, or almost.
Special 80th anniversary ceremonies began this morning at the Canadian War Cemetery in Normandy, France. The event honored those killed on D-Day. More than 2,000 Canadian soldiers are buried at the cemetery near Juno Beach. Their sacrifice is being marked a day ahead of tomorrow's 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings. The Canadian delegation on hand this year includes 13 Second World War veterans. The cemetery is being lit by candlelight this evening in remembrance of all those who took part in the invasion. The Allied invasion of occupied France on June 6, 1944 marked the beginning of the end of the war in Europe. Ceremonies were held today in France ahead of tomorrow's D-Day celebrations. Among them was a tribute to the Royal Regina Rifles in Normandy, who were honored for their sacrifice and service. Julia Wong has more from France.
This statue commemorating the Royal Regina Rifles was unveiled here today. Now, that regiment was one of the first regiments to land on Juno Beach on D-Day, and more than 100 of its members died on D-Day. But there's never really been anything to mark or honor this particular regiment until now. This is a bronze statue that's 2.5 meters tall, and it depicts a soldier carrying his rifle, carrying his gear, ready to storm the beach with a look of determination on his face that's probably mixed in with a little bit of fear. The ceremony was overseen by Princess Anne, and she is the regiment's colonel-in-chief. She spoke with members of the regiment and then thanked the regiment as a whole for their service and their sacrifice on D-Day.
The statue unveiled today will forever help tell the story of loyalty, of bravery, and of duty. I also hope it will remind future generations to never forget the sacrifice and determination the Regina Rifles.
I was here 30 years ago as a young rifleman, as a parade participant at the 50th anniversary of the D-Day landings, and I noticed, as did all of us, that there was just a small, tiny plaque. Our regiment is full of working class individuals and farmers and Indigenous people. It didn't have a lot of money after the war, and there wasn't a really great symbol of what happened and what they did.
Big crowds gathered to mark the occasion, some carrying French flags and others carrying Canadian flags. And it was a moving day for those whose loved ones were a part of the regiment 80 years ago. In particular, one Saskatchewan First Nation that had 6 members storm Juno Beach and only 4 came back.
20% of the Regina Rifles were First Nations from different First Nations in Saskatchewan. 6 were members of my nation. They didn't have to, but they went.
It's quite emotional day. It's quite touching. Quite frankly, the last time a member of my family was in France, people were shooting at him. So it makes it quite chilling when we went to the beach yesterday to see what they faced, the distance they crossed, and what they did to secure our freedoms for my generation and my kids' generation.
The regiment said that there's a specific reason this statue is here. They say there are lots of monuments on Juno Beach, but this particular community is how far the regiment got into France on D-Day. Julia Wong, CBC News, 2MU, France.
The United Kingdom held its national commemoration in Portsmouth. Soldiers preparing for the Normandy landings departed on this day 80 years ago.
It is our duty to ensure that we and future generations do not forget their service and their sacrifice in replacing tyranny with freedom.
Other members of the royal family in attendance included Queen Camilla and Prince William. Dame Helen Mirren hosted the ceremony, which included dozens of British veterans of D-Day, along with hundreds of local school children. The massive seaborne invasion turned the tide of the Second World War. It involved almost 7,000 ships and landing craft across a stretch of the French coast. Well, it's hump day, so that means the weekend is at least in sight if you can see it through all the fog.
Yeah.
Is there at least some good news coming for the weekend?
Yeah, I do think we're going to see.
We're due for some.
Yeah. I think we're going to see, well, I showed you earlier, but we're going to see a bit of a pattern shift as we head through the weekend. Looks like it maybe solidify on Sunday.
Great.
Looks like. So it's good. Let's take a look at what's going on, though. Until we get there, we do have a bit more rain to get through. So through the evening on Thursday, that area of low pressure kind of hanging around. That's the same thing on Friday morning. We may see some periods of rain, but look at that. Do you see that potential for some clear skies through at least a bit of Friday across the island? But again, some showers will likely move through the overnight, move back in through the overnight. But we should see Temperatures reaching around 12 degrees in St. John's. Same thing for Marystown, really along the south coast, anywhere from 10 to 12 degrees. And then for central and the west coast, your temperatures generally in the teens. Now, single digits still lingering, though, for the northern peninsula, really anywhere in that onshore flow, but particularly the northern peninsula and southeastern portions of Labrador. Otherwise, another beautiful day. Now, this is when we could see temperatures closer to the 30-degree mark. Depends on how things go, but we're already seeing 27 degrees in Lab West, so the chances of seeing close to 30 are pretty good as we head towards the end of the week. Nain down to about 10 degrees through the day, but overall there will be plenty of sunshine to go around through Saturday. So that area of low pressure is just going to skirt the Avalon. Saturday morning will start a little gray, it looks like, but we should see some clearing skies. We get more of a northerly flow. Now, areas like Bonavista North and along the northeast coast, you may stay in some cloud cover through a good chunk of the day, but Saturday at this point is looking like this is really when we're going to see that change and a good chance of seeing some sunshine. And across Labrador as well, you will see that change in the forecast towards the coast. But again, as that area of low pressure moves north and you get more onshore again, the temperatures will drop. But overall, this is a pretty decent forecast, 13 to 18 degrees across the island. A little cooler again for the northern peninsula, 28 degrees in Lab City, 26 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and a little chillier up across Nain, only sitting in the single digits. And you're going to see that for a couple of days before we see potentially, maybe, some snow back in the forecast for parts of northern Labrador. Here's a long-range forecast. 17 degrees it looks like on Sunday. Now this is providing we do see this pattern continue, but it does look like we should see teens into next week. Monday looking like some showers will roll through, but temperatures really warming up for central Newfoundland into the 20s by the time we get towards the end of the weekend, beginning of next week. Same thing for western Newfoundland, however, a little bit chance of a few showers on Monday. And then for eastern Labrador, it doesn't look like we'll see any rain until about Monday, but overall temperatures will be into the mid-20s. And western Labrador, you're going to see a little bit of a cool down relative to your 27, 28 degrees that you've been seeing on Sunday, and then even more so as we head into Monday. But again, lots of sunshine. Our photo today, speaking of sunshine, great shot here of the sunset in St. Vincent's. Thank you to Doreen for that great colorful shot. We always appreciate some sunset and sunrise photos. If you have any weather photos that you'd like to share with us, you can send them to Facebook or you can email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
All we need now is a whale to come just jumping right up there. That's it. All that photo is missing.
Soon. Well, Capeland weather, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's almost, it's not almost July, but it feels like we're getting there.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's interesting with the warm temperatures in Labrador West. We'll have to keep an eye on the forest fire risk. That's the downside with all those warm temperatures. Yeah. Saw a little forest fire in Quebec that briefly closed the road into Labrador. So another thing for you to keep an eye on the forecast.
Always do.
And that's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching, everyone.
Good